This is Katerina Hencova, and I'm going to read her bio to you. You have it in front of you. She's enthusiastic about teaching women how to plan like a woman and salary negotiation for women. Created to inform the female demographic. Her presentation was created to inform the female demographic on overarching various hurdles of gender wage disparity, living longer than men, lower Social Security benefits, and going through major changes they may face throughout life. She graduated from State University of New York, Empire State College with a bachelor's degree in business management and economics with a dual concentration in finance and management, and completed her CFP coursework at UC Irvine. Katerina has been gaining vast industry experience since 2007 when she began her career and has developed an expertise in tax reducing strategies. As a philanthropist, Katerina is committed to volunteering and community service by acting in different leadership roles with nonprofit organizations, focusing on improving other people's lives and building a strong and healthy community, just as she's doing today, volunteering for us with her valuable time. So you guys can learn how to negotiate your compensation. Katerina is a certified financial planner, professional CFP, who specializes in serving women and their unique needs. She's passionate about female empowerment through knowledge and guides individuals and families in building comprehensive financial plans and developing customized strategies to achieve their financial liberation. Financial liberation sounds wonderful. So welcome, Katerina. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. Thanks for doing this for us.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year, everyone. And how wonderful that this is coming at the beginning of the year, because it hopefully will give you an inspiration to get after your finances, to benchmark how you are being compensated, and see whether there are any improvements in your financial being so you can achieve that financial liberation that we all dream of, and that's readily available to men, but we have to work much harder at. And as Lacey mentioned, I am extremely passionate about supporting women. And that's primarily because I had to figure it out on my own for myself as well. I moved to this country when I was 21, and I moved here without my parents, broken English. My college degree wasn't finished, and I struggled for a little while and had to really learn the steps on my own to kind of create a meaningful, sustainable life for myself. So I'm really honored to be able to share this knowledge with you as well, so you can also improve your situation. So thank you for having me, Lacey, and I will go ahead and share my slides. I might need you to give me permission to share.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Thank you. So welcome to salary negotiation. I had built this seminar specifically for women. And the reason is because women traditionally do not negotiate. And we will talk about why it's important to negotiate. Also, the range of men that automatically will negotiate their salary. I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about the current environment in workplace when it comes to compensation. We will dive into the importance of not accepting the offer the way it's presented to you. And we'll talk about the amount of money that you could potentially be leaving on the table if you do not ask for more. Usually when people take a look at an offer, they look at the base salary. But there are several other pieces within the offer that are negotiable. So we'll go over those as well. I'll spend time on how we can properly set our target salary. So not only what we want, but also how are we really valued in the workplace and the worth that we assign to ourselves. Once we get those dialed down, then it's a proper time to set a strategy for negotiating. We'll spend time on how to communicate our value to the future employer to really get the adequate compensation that we deserve. And I'll also share a few practice ideas and resources if you wanted to expand in that area, what you can utilize to do that. So in California, I mean, everyone is aware of the gender wage gap. I would say all women are, not all men. And in California alone, the disparity is 18%, meaning if a guy earns $100,000, a woman doing the same job, having the same qualifications, and perhaps even the same level of experience and years out of college, she'll be making around $82,000. And 18% already sounds like a large disparity. What's even scarier is the fact that in other states, it's even worse. And I think New York is ahead of us in that disparity where the gap is smaller. California is number 2. And then the remainder 48 states, it just goes down and the gap is widening there. And then if you add race or ethnicity into the picture, then that affects women even more. Women of color are affected even more in that respect. So for that specific reason, we unfortunately really have to fight a little more. And by fight, I don't mean aggressively. We kind of have to stand up for ourselves and just really ask for what we're worth. And despite of equal pay law that's been in effect since 1963, this is unfortunately still happening in the workplace. There has been more push for transparency, some from just society, some from the government aspect. Unfortunately, whenever the local or state government wants to get involved in these matters, it does not necessarily help the employees. For example, right now, there's been a law that an employer has to state the range in the ad when they put the ad up for a job, and along with the job description, they have to add the range of pay. What that resulted in is companies posting a range between 75,000 to 250,000. This is a really wide range. It's really unreasonable, right? These numbers are arbitrary, but the companies have to do that to satisfy the law. So this is just an example of how new legislation does not really help this issue. And again, it's on us as applicants and candidates to learn to communicate our value and get paid what we're worth. Women, unfortunately, also have that burden of having to take time off work if they decide to have children. And by statistics, if we take, let's say, 1 year off, we're risking a loss of 11% in our earnings. And that doesn't mean that by the time we return to work, our employer has reduced our pay. It's when we are returning to work, perhaps applying for a new job, the employer is looking at the gap on the resume and will offer 11% less, roughly, than a woman, let's say, that who doesn't have that gap on the resume. And if a woman takes more than 4 years off, the reduction she's facing is 39%. And we have staff on our team who have, took time off to raise children and now came back to work. And one example, this one assistant of ours, she raised 3 children and took 8 years off. So that's not completely unreasonable if we account for the youngest one to be able to be in school full time, for example, that she can actually take on full-time hours. It can really add up to 8 years. So just think about how much we are risking and leaving on the table by choosing to have children, which is unfortunate because men don't have to make that choice. And we can also account for the fact that while we're not working and we're raising children, we're not contributing to our 401ks and making contributions to our Social Security benefit. Those are credits calculated based on our income. So for the times that we're not working, there is really nothing contributing to our financial future. Since COVID, I'm sure many of you maybe will speak to this. COVID was really hard on women, and that's because we really take on the responsibility of the caretaker. So many of you, I'm sure, are moms, and if I was to ask, who became a private tutor, a nanny, a babysitter, a private chef, during COVID when everything was closed and you had to work from home and as well, take care of your children and do online school. So this is just another hurdle that we as women have to overcome because we're really expected to do it all. And there isn't necessarily any added value to doing it all. There is a unique opportunity when it comes to employment now, and that's the fact that the unemployment rate is extremely low. So we still have a lot of jobs open, and that's kind of that pent-up demand from COVID when a lot of companies had to lay off people, and then when the world started opening up, started hiring people back. What we also noticed is that women were not necessarily in a hurry to get back into a W-2 role, and instead rather started their own businesses in the pandemic, which allows them to work from home, take care of what they need to take care of regarding their children and households and families. So there's definitely been a shortage of professionals in HR and healthcare because those jobs are oftentimes held by women. So when it comes to negotiation, we have experienced more than 50% of men negotiate their job offers, roughly about 2/3, and only about 1/3 of women will do the same. And we attribute that a little bit to the fact that when men are entering the workplace, they have their confidence a little more inflated. It's not always supported, it's not always justified, but they kind of walk in like they own the place, they name their number, and there is no shame in their gain. Now, if a woman were to do that, there is that fear of appearing pushy, greedy, ungrateful, desperate. I even had a client of mine that I coached on her own salary negotiation tell me, I don't want to appear like a high maintenance prima donna. That is kind of that fear that we carry, and it's been put on primarily by ourselves because that's what society told us, right? Oftentimes, women are made to believe that they should just be grateful to have a job. And that's from just history of women, particularly not working, let's say 60, 70 years ago, and being dependent on a man. So if a woman 70 years ago did get a job, let's say she was an administrative assistant, that money was considered as a bonus for the family because the husband was earning that primary salary. So that sentiment kind of has still carried, and it's really only up to us to change that. If we want to be perceived as highly positioned performing professionals the same way that men are, we kind of have to earn that view ourselves. And for that reason, it's also really important that when we do negotiate, it's extremely strategic. When I built this seminar, I had interviewed many people. Some were male professionals, and I asked them, how do you negotiate? What did you say? What was the response? What did you get at the end? Because I wanted to see how men go about it. I also interviewed a number of HR professionals to kind of get a look and view and perspective from the other side of the table. And I interviewed male HR professionals and female HR professionals. And what I learned was really profound. So the male professionals told me, the male HR professionals shared with me that women simply don't ask. And one of them even said, if she asked, I'd give it to her. Because, and this is the secret sauce, when someone goes through a round of interviews, especially a company that's extending the resources, the time, the finances to hire someone and having to go through a number of applicants, screen them, have CEOs meet with them. It's a big investment into hiring a talent. Once the company or the employer sets their eyes on a candidate that they do want to hire, they're not willing to start the process all over because of money. Meaning they would much rather pay the extra $10, $20, $30,000 than to start the process all over again. And this is a really good information for us because so many women have told me, I don't want to negotiate because I'm scared that they'll pull the offer. And this fear is completely unjustified. Please know that there is no way that an employer would pull the offer if you have all of the qualifications that they're looking for. You are the right talent for the job. You fit the culture. They would much rather pay you extra money. And this HR professional said, I always have a cushion. I have extra money to go to if we need to pay that candidate more. So his words of wisdom were, women simply just need to ask. Now, there is a difference in the way that women negotiate or have to negotiate versus men. Like I already said, men can really come in somewhat aggressive, name their number, and it's never going to be thought about twice because it's quite expected. If a woman comes in as aggressively, she'll definitely turn the other party off, and especially if it's a guy. So it's really important that we use the right words, the right questions, and almost have to make them think like it was their idea. So we'll dive deeper into the details. I just wanted to get a sense, who has ever negotiated their salary? And you can just raise your hands. I see 2. Is that correct?
I think there's 4.
Okay.
5.
5. So, and how many women are in the room? 40?
40.
So 10% of that room has negotiated their salary. Hopefully this presentation today will give you more inspiration and motivation to advocate on your behalf, because it's really important that we do. And the reason that it's important that we really advocate for ourselves and the salary that we deserve is because what you're getting paid today will dictate what you will get paid in the future. And that's through several different sources of income. Number one are, for example, future raises. And I'll share a story with you. Young woman that I had worked with, she shared with me that, she was an HR professional and she was getting paid $60,000 she was interviewing somewhere and she wanted $65,000 in that new job. So her strategy was, I am going to tell them that I make $65,000 now, and therefore they will not want to pay me less. So they'll pay me the $65,000. So this is a strategy she utilized in the interview or in the negotiation. The person she was negotiating with was also a female, and she was the hiring manager and HR, because that was the department that she was entering. And when she named her number, $65,000, the hiring manager kept saying, is that all you want? Is there anything else you want? And my client was so terrified that she would be found out that she lied, because she lied about making $65,000 when she was making 60. So that fear prevented her from even stating any other desires that she had. So she accepted the role at $65,000. Down the road, these two who are working together, they become friends. So the hiring manager shared with her, she was authorized to pay her $75,000. But my client, again, fear, and she really positioned herself $10,000 lower. So this is how it will dictate what we get paid in future jobs, because if we're starting at a lower point now, it's kind of harder to communicate a higher point unless you've gone through some workshops, trainings, practiced it, where you are confident to communicate that gap and ask for more. Also in California, it's now against the law to ask you about your salary history or how much you're currently making. I still see that even on jobs that are posted, to submit your salary history along with your resume and application. Please know that if you see that, you can easily omit it. And I had a friend who was a programmer, and he told me that whenever a job asked him about a salary history, he deferred them to his most recent job. He said, you can talk to my employer, they have the record of that. Your new employer is never gonna reach out to your old employer to ask about how much you're getting paid. First of all, your old employer cannot reveal that, it's illegal, but this is one way how you can deflect that question without making things uncomfortable and mentioning, that it's illegal to inquire about. The other piece that's dictated by your base salary is your bonus, because it is, in most cases, usually it's a percentage of your current pay. So let's say you're making $82,000 because you're a female, but you're performing a job that should pay $100,000. And your bonus is, let's say, 10%. So you're going to get a bonus of $8,200 annually versus $10,000 annually if you were making your full salary. The other piece is a 401k match. So in most cases, the 3% match is somewhat common. That's what we see the most. So I'll use that number just for this example. So if you are making $100,000, your 401k match that the company would make into your retirement plan is $3,000. If you're making $82,000, then it's more like $2,400. And we know that if you are investing and the interest is compounding, that $600 year over year can certainly add up. And besides, it's free money, right? It's what the company or employer is giving you. So you certainly don't want to leave free money on the table. And I already talked about the salaries in the future opportunities. And this also applies to, let's say, if you were being promoted within the company, and this is really where the danger comes in. Imagine you're performing a job, getting paid $82,000. You should be making $100,000. Now you are being promoted to a manager. Let's say manager makes $150,000, but because your company's been paying you 82, they may only bump you up to, let's say, 100. For a managerial position, that should be earning 150. So those are the ways in which women can leave money on the table. And if we continue to do that job after job throughout our entire career, which could be 30, 35 years, we will leave $1.6 million on the table. And this includes, the hard cash. This also includes the money that you could have saved, invested, the compounding interest, and all of that. So imagine retiring at age, let's say 65, and having an extra $1.6 million. Imagine what you could do with that. Your children potentially could graduate without student loans. Your home could be paid off sooner. And now you're just living securely in retirement. You're living out your financial freedom because you don't have that overhead of mortgage. So it's really important that we keep an eye on these things, because we as women also live longer, which is kind of a catch-22, because if we're getting paid less, if our social security benefits are less, if we've been able to save less and invest less, we have a smaller pool of money to live on, but somehow we're supposed to make it last longer than the men. So this is really important to pay attention to and be aware of, just to make sure that you will be okay in retirement and you're not going to outlive your assets. The other hurdle that we as women face is the cost of long-term care. So long-term care, is anyone familiar with it, by the way, before I start going into the details? I see some hands. So I'm assuming some of you may have also had family members who got elderly and needed some help around the home, or you've seen your older family members perhaps go into a senior living facility or senior homes and stuff like that. So that type of care is extremely expensive. To cover someone without insurance today is between $70,000 to $120,000 a year. So it's really an annual salary for someone. Imagine having this expense in retirement when you are on fixed income. You're not earning anymore. You're just depleting your assets to live on. And then you have this added expense of long-term care. And the reason, or the way that women are disadvantaged in that, is that when you have a heterosexual couple and the man, let's say, gets weak, cannot move around as easily, the spouse, wife, partner, she will jump in, take care of him, because that's how we are naturally wired. In most cases, we've raised children, and we just do that type of work for our loved ones. So she'll be driving around, picking up the prescriptions, taking him to the doctor, making his meals, perhaps even transferring him from bed to that couch or chair. And when he passes away, because statistically we outlive men, when he is gone and she gets to the age that she needs this care, there's no one around. She's literally alone. Maybe children are helping out, but these days it's very easy to move across the country for a career because of opportunities. So we cannot really always rely on someone to be around. And now she's going to have to dip into her assets to cover that cost of care. So keep that in mind as well when you are planning for your financial future. Another fact that I'll share, and this is probably more than you wanted to know, when it comes to policies, insurance policies to cover ourselves for long-term care costs, the insurance companies has caught on to the fact that we are a higher risk for all these reasons that I have mentioned, and they actually charge us a higher premium because they see that the claim history comes more from the females than the males. So they even position us as a higher risk to the insurance company. So this is not a myth. It truly has been proven in the tranches. So besides, when we negotiate, what we're getting are, of course, extra dollars, right? Besides the monetary piece, there are a couple of other aspects that we are earning that can also yield us in our growth. And it's from a leadership standpoint. And I know Lacey appreciates, and I'm sure this is what Lacey has been teaching you all, because she's an expert on women and leadership. So when we communicate our value to the employer, what we're saying is, hey, I know how much I am worth. I know how much my work is worth. And I will sit here and prove my value to you, communicate my value, so you reflect it in the dollar amount, and I am adequately compensated. And what this does, it positions you as a leader upon entering the company and separates you from the other candidates who did not negotiate, did not advocate for themselves, and did not communicate their worth. And there has been a study done, and the result was that people don't like people who do what they're told. There is somehow a diminishing in the respect that we're not getting to earn if we're not advocating for ourselves. And by accepting an offer exactly the way that it was written and presented to us is doing exactly that. We're just doing what we're told, which is just sign here, right? So if you want to be viewed differently upon entering an employer or company, make sure that you show that you're advocating on yourself, you're communicating your worth, and you're standing up for yourself. Why is this important? Let's say you work there three to 6 months, you've been with this employer, they're happy with your work, and there is an opportunity to, let's say, lead a special project, start an initiative, or even an opportunity for promotion. You will be considered because you have earned that name for yourself right when you were entering the company. And you always want to be visible within your employer. And this is where men really do a better job. I don't like the way they do it because it's not authentic and it's not organic, but it earns them the money and the promotions nonetheless. And that's simply bragging. Men tend to talk about their work a lot. And what's even more frustrating at times is when your boss is a male and you're doing all of that work and you prepare him for those board meetings where he gets to gloat and brag and not mention that it was really you who did all the work. So it's really important that we stay visible by kind of being on top of mind of our superiors and bosses. So when there are these special opportunities available, that we're considered, because that's also going to yield you higher pay in the future. So what is negotiable in the offer? So I already mentioned the base salary, and that is actually that one big piece that people take a look at, and they'll judge the offer just from that. So the base salary is extremely important. It is certainly number one. And that's for reasons that we already covered. You know, your 401k match is calculated off of that. The the bonuses are calculated off of that. And also in the future, as you're either getting promoted or applying for the other jobs, you will shoot for a higher number if your base salary was already a bit higher as well. What I see from experience when I coach people into their jobs is that the base salary doesn't always come at the level that we would like. And it's not necessarily because the company doesn't think highly of you. In some cases, the company may not have a budget for that higher salary. Excuse me. And in those cases, I have encouraged my clients to focus on their other pieces of the offer. So title is something that can be easily negotiated because it carries some flexibility. And you may be able to negotiate a higher title and perhaps even develop a plan with the employer on how over time you will reach that salary that matches the title. I'll give you an example of a woman in New York City. She was being hired as a director and the salary was X. It was $300,000. And that was their max. They actually could not go over for budgetary reasons and also due to the organizational chart. People at her level basically got paid $300,000 across the board. So she was quite seasoned in her career. She had a lot of experience, and the title of a director seemed too generic for her. And she wanted to kind of earn a little more credibility because that would help her within the company across, functional team or cross-functional teams and communication, and as well as communicating to, let's say, clients and vendors and so forth. So what we negotiated was a title of an executive director. The role didn't necessarily change, but it repositioned her as really, truly highly positioned professional, highly skilled and experienced. And that may yield her in, let's say, bringing more clients into the firm or bringing clients of a higher caliber. So don't be afraid to negotiate the title. And I also encourage you to get a little more creative. It doesn't have to be a title that you have seen in other companies. If there is something that's important to you in your work, feel free to include that in the title, whether it's head of philanthropy or DEI initiative, something that perhaps even pulls on your heartstrings and kind of fills your passion as well. Another piece that is negotiable is the frequency of performance reviews. And this gets always overlooked. People don't know that they can actually negotiate that. Virtually, you can negotiate anything and everything. What you get at the end depends on what the company is able to offer or is available. But essentially, you can ask about anything. So the reason frequency of performance reviews is important is because it will help you to stay visible and truly be on top of mind of your superior. So this is a great way to kind of increase that visibility, especially if the base salary is not coming in at the level that you want. Because if you're meeting with your superior every 3 months and you get to communicate the work that you're doing, the projects that you are working on, the improvements you have made with your teams, and what revenue or performance it has created, how it's helped the company or the employer, you will be certainly considered for bonuses, promotions, and even other special projects that continue to add visibility, which may lead to higher pay. Bonuses, I did talk about them being annual. You can negotiate to get your bonus semi-annual or quarterly. And it sounds odd, but I have seen it done. And the reason it makes a difference is because you're not waiting a whole year to get your money. So imagine if, let's say, you know, instead of $10,000 a year later, what if you got $2,500 in the next 3 months? That would help you to perhaps pay down your student debt, lower your car loan, or invest it, especially in financial markets right now when securities are on sale. Imagine if you could utilize $2,500 and buy some sound mutual funds or stocks, ETFs, at a better price than a year from now when perhaps the markets have recovered. So that's certainly helping your financial situation. And the question I usually get is, what about signing bonuses? Aren't they dead? I'm going to ask by show of hands. I'm going to expand this window. Has anyone ever gotten a sign-on bonus upon entering a company? I see 0 hands.
Oh, we got one.
Okay, congratulations. I'm happy we got at least one. Okay, so I don't ever want to see you applying for a job, negotiating your salary, and not asking for sign-on bonus. The company will not automatically offer it because they don't have to. In coaching women, I have seen that each time we asked for a sign-on bonus, she got it. And it wasn't initially in the offer, and that's okay. But you're going to ask anyway. Any questions on that? I want to share an example, but are there any questions on a sign-on bonus?
Yeah, there's a question. Go ahead.
Just how does that work if it's not a like corporate setting? I guess I'm wondering, like I'm in a private practice type setting and I don't know if those same things apply or if they're completely like different.
What setting? I couldn't understand.
Practice
Private practice.
Oh,
What kind
private
of-
practice.
there.
I'm sorry?
Secondary.
Psychotherapy, private practice.
Okay, so consider the role that you're going to be doing. And if, let's say, you're working somewhere, you're semi-happy working there, and this company wants to hire you, this new practice, you are leaving some money on the table by leaving that previous job. And that could be an annual bonus. So if, let's say, I get my bonus every December, and it's based on performance from, January to December, and I'm leaving that job in June to join this new practice, there is 50% of my bonus that I am losing. So that would be the ask I would make for that amount of money. And in one of my coaching experiences, I was coaching a CFO female who is entering an entertainment company. So I think they're animation or streaming, something like that, here in Hollywood. And that was the only time that we made an ask for a sign-on bonus. And the employer said, well, what are you losing? What are you leaving on the table? It happened only one time, but we had to come back with an answer. So chances are you will not be asked that, but have an answer prepared if you are. And a bonus is definitely a significant amount. Now, there is no way for them to know the amount of bonus that you're leaving on the table. So you can literally name your price. I also recently coached someone and they offered her $20,000 sign-on bonus. The role paid, the entire salary was $250,000. The sign-on bonus was $20,000. That ratio seemed very small to me. So we made an ask and they doubled the sign-on bonus. So this professional essentially got $40,000 upon entering that company. So don't be afraid to ask that. And especially if, let's say, you're relocating or you're going from working remote to now being in the office all the time, that's going to cost you more money, not only gas or electric charge, depending on what you drive, but also the wear and tear on your car, the hours that you're spending in the car. You're going to have to get different clothing to be in the office than at home, right? So consider all of that and make an ask. And also, I already mentioned that if you are in front of your employer more frequently, that may position you better for promotions and so forth. Other benefits.
I have a question.
Yes.
Katerina, you have a question. Go ahead.
Oh, so for the sign-on bonus, let's say if I'm working at my company right now, just at part-time, right? And I'll be done with school by May. And then if they offer me a full-time position, does this still work? Like, inquiring for the sign-on bonus again, or how would that work?
Yeah, so I would still ask, because now you are coming in as a better credentialed professional. You will have your degree. So certainly, and I don't know whether you're graduating with student debt, but I would imagine if you can get sign-on bonus, that would help you tremendously with reducing that. And I do have a little bullet point around student loan assistance programs. And, you know, if companies don't offer that, you definitely most certainly want to ask for that sign-on bonus, especially if they don't have a student loan assistance program. This amount of money could significantly help you, I'm sure. So there are other benefits that you can negotiate, and that has to do with the coverage, other benefits that the company offers. So let's say health insurance, also disability insurance, long-term care insurance. And the room, you are all still very young to get a long-term care insurance policy, but just keep an eye on whether the company offers it at all, because you may be able to get onto a group plan that the company pays for while you work there. You also want to make sure that the plan is portable. So if you ever leave, you'll take the policy with you. The premiums will be your responsibility, but chances are the premiums are quite low because, one, you're young, it was a group policy and the employer paid it for a while. In an offer, it's really important to have an understanding of what is important to you. And I literally coach people on make a list of priorities, because if the first pieces, like let's say the base, bonus, vacation, doesn't come in at the level where you want it, you can then negotiate the other parts. And vacation is actually a really good negotiating piece as well. Imagine you're making $100,000 a year. There are 52 weeks in the year, right? So roughly 1 week equals to $2,000. If the company has a standard of, let's say, 2 weeks of vacation, don't be hesitant to negotiate 3 or 4. It's not necessarily putting cash in your pocket directly, but you are getting to spend more time with family and enjoy your time off while being paid. And $2,000 a week is nothing to sneeze at. And I actually coached someone who was with a global company. She had been there for 9 years. So she had 4 weeks of paid vacation. She was entering another company, also international. Their standard was 2 weeks. At this point, she had a big family. They like to take vacations. So she brought it up. She said, hey, I have 4 weeks currently. And they said, okay, we'll meet you in the middle. We'll give you another week. And I think in her case, a week equal to $5,000. So it's not nothing. And if you implement this across all the different aspects in the offer, overall, the improvement is significant. And equity or stock option is also a really good negotiating piece. So we see that to be more frequent and popular these days. And when I coach people, they always tell me, well, this company doesn't really have any guideline on how much stock each employee gets. They don't have any rules for that. And that is actually exactly what you want. If the company does not have a laid out policy for equity and stock options, it means the flexibility is really to your advantage because you can create anything you want. It's when they have tables and lines and, you know, brackets for manager gets this, VP gets this, executive gets this. If you are in a, you know, you're plugged into a category, it's hard to negotiate. So the more ambiguous, the better. If there are any, if there is a lack of clarity in the offer, don't let that discourage you. Actually use that to your advantage. It's kind of like the law, right? Some laws are very ambiguous, and it allows the attorneys to interpret it in the way that they need to, that serves their client. So use this ambiguity and inflict the lack of clarity to your advantage. There's also an opportunity with retirement benefits. And in most cases, it's the standard 401k with some match. But depending on the level of your role, let's say you're getting to the VP's levels and up, you may actually negotiate additional retirement plan, additional retirement money to be put into your retirement plan, and even deferred compensation. So deferred compensation applies to more the executive level. Let's say somebody's making $300,000 a year. They only need $120,000 to live on. The remainder of that compensation can be deferred, meaning they're saving money on taxes. So that's what executives would implement if they wanted to just reduce their tax bill, which in California, unfortunately, most people have a tax issue. So here is another list of examples that are negotiated. I already talked about the vacation a little bit. You can also apply that to necessary leave. And that's whether you either have medical needs or family needs, you know, your children have a specific schedule. Don't hesitate to communicate the type of schedule, work schedule that you need. And you can even inquire whether the company helps with childcare. Do they have childcare on site, or do they provide some sort of a stipend for childcare? Work schedule and telecommuting has changed due to COVID quite a bit. Companies understand that people really want to work from home nowadays. And depending on the level of your job, you know, if you're a VP and you have an entire team reporting to you, it might be hard to work from home. The company may want you on site, unless, let's say, you're in tech. They all kind of work from home and they're really efficient and used to it. But so be reasonable about that. If you cannot fully work from home, you may want to inquire about working Fridays from home, or, you know, 1 week at the office, 1 week at home. Just really understand what fits your needs the most and what fulfills you and supports you in your job. Moving expenses, this is something that people often forget to ask about. If you're moving for a job, you most certainly want to inquire how they assist you with that. And depending on the company, I have seen something as generous as they will pay the seller's commission to the realtor that's, you know, selling your home, and pay escrow fees on your new home upon relocating. And similar with housing assistance, I have a client who lives here in Orange County, but her job was up in San Francisco, and she would fly there on Monday, come home to Orange County on Friday. So the company had an apartment for her for those days, so she could work up there. So if there is any cost associated with you either moving for the company or providing your services to the company, don't be hesitate to voice that and see how they can support you in that. I talked about the student loan assistance a little bit. So some companies have programs for that. If you have a student loan, you have to inquire. It would be criminal if you didn't. You would really be doing a huge disservice to yourself by not asking. And if they don't have a program, make an ask for a sign-on bonus. And tuition reimbursement, we see these programs still kind of around. That's if you work for the company, inquire how they can support you in your advancement, whether it's going back to school for a master's degree or a certification, designation, any additional courses that can help you in performing your job. And if the company doesn't pay for you to go to school, you may inquire about them, let's say, hiring a coach for you who comes into the office once a week and spends time with you and just coaches you on, career and development. And if the company doesn't have that available, you can ask whether someone within the company would be a well-suited mentor for you, so you can continue to grow within the company and support the company better down the road. What this will communicate to the employer is also the fact that you are committing to them for a long time, that your interest is really aligned with theirs, and they may want to support you in that. And if none of that is available, you most certainly want to inquire about how to be placed on these specific roles that will showcase your skills, or how to lead an initiative or a project where you get to really shine so you become visible. You may want to inquire what opportunities are there for you to perhaps volunteer with some of these groups where you can become more visible and just showcase your talent. Because again, the more visible you are, the more opportunities will be presented to you in the future. And the fact that you even ask that in the negotiation or interview tells them that you truly want to grow and that you are driven. And as long as the company supports you and aligns you with the right type of work, you will do really well for them, which is what the company essentially wants, right? Because they're making an investment in you as well.
Katerina,
Yes.
what would you think about taking a quick bio break?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let's take 5 and then we'll come back and get started again. Thanks, Katerina.
My pleasure.
Huh? Yeah, and it's right at 11.
Lacey, how do you think we're doing on time?
What?
How do you think we're doing on time?
I think we're doing great. We have another hour.
Amazing. And I
Is
want
that
to
it?
also make sure that women get asked questions and I can support them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when you're done with the presentation, we'll turn the lights back up so you can see better and people can ask questions. That'd be great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think they're liking it so far?
What?
Do you think they're liking it so far?
Absolutely. Who
Okay.
doesn't like to learn how to make more money?
Heck yes.
And I mean, there is no other presentation like this. You're just the best in the business, and we so appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, some of these are even reminders for me,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to be of service.
I'm gonna hit the little girls' room. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, maybe next month.
Yeah, next month.
Yeah, after our next workshop. Yeah. And I'm kind of confused, I'd rather do it that way. So we have to, you wanna do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's meet at 9:30.
And then my physical PE,
No, because it's, all 8 workshops, like the package that we're offering, all of them together as one and help. So, we don't do them before, it's, it's a whole series. But what I'm saying is we're going to do a new cohort next September. So if this individual wants to apply, then if you give them an email contact information, we'll make sure she knows what application process is, which is probably gonna be around. Yeah, so she can go through the next, yeah, I mean, this time one goes, you know, you could go through the next one to the, yeah. Thanks for being willing to do that. We'll meet now for the next one. Okay. Okay, Katerina. let's
Are
do
we
it.
back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, amazing. So we talked about the pieces that are negotiable within the offer. And now what's important to set is the strategy that we're going to utilize in our negotiation. How do we really figure out what is the right amount that we should be asking for and how do we ask for it? So it's really important that we do our own research to find out what other companies or employers or competitors are paying for that specific role. And you also want to focus on the area in which you live, because living in, let's say, the Bay Area and performing a job remotely in, let's say, Ohio, the salary will be significantly different. And we have to take a look at the area we live in, not where the company is located, because we're paying living expenses for the area that we live in. So make sure that if you're benchmarking yourself, doing that research, you're focusing on, let's say, Orange County in this case. So you want to get a sense for what other companies are paying for that job and that will give you that salary range. So let's say it's between $100,000 to $120,000. Now, within that range, you want to identify your target salary. So you want to take a look at where you're living, whether you're relocating. Imagine you are living in, let's say, Texas, but for this job, you're moving to Palo Alto. That's a really significant increase in cost. So again, you want to index it up if you're moving for the job into a more expensive area. And you want to also take a look at your experience, any other previous achievements, your special skills, or if you have dealt with some of the issues in your previous company. You want to factor all of that in and then set your target salary. And with the target salary, you never want to state it as an even number. So let's say 110,000, because the even number communicates that the number's arbitrary and you can be talked down from that number. You will make that number way more stickier if you pick something really random. So let's say $112,830. And the employer or the whoever you're negotiating with will be kind of taken aback. But psychologically, what it's going to tell them, oh, shoot, they've done their research. They know their value. I don't have a lot of wiggle room here. The other point I want to communicate, and this is really important, is if you identify your target salary, let's say 100,000 to 120, and communicate that to the employer hears the lower number. Meanwhile, you're thinking the higher end of the range. So if, let's say, you're not willing to take less than $120,000, shift that range a little higher, because the employer will most likely want to talk you down, whether that's due to budgetary restrictions or whatever's available. Don't be afraid to adjust that. And if you do adjust it up, just have a good argument for why you deserve that number. So really dig deep into your experience and any previous achievements, special skills, and so forth, to have some sort of a substantiation for your case. I have coached people on walkaway points, but before we get to that, in the negotiation process, I always try everything to not have to do that. And at the end, it's a personal decision. If the company truly cannot pay you what you want, and you feel like your value is not being recognized here, you may need to take your business elsewhere, because you know your worth. And that's really the number one, that you're walking in with your own worth and having a good sense of it. I will share an I'll share an example from an experience, however. This may have been maybe 18 months ago. I was coaching a woman. She was a single mom, and she had not worked for a really long time. She really needed to get back to work. And she was presented with an opportunity. It was a sales role, and the base salary was very, very low. What they were going to make up was the bonus, or a percentage of her sales. And they made her an offer that, you know, it seemed very low, borderline insulting, depending on how you look at it. And my client was extremely distraught, extremely upset, very emotional, because she really felt like it was an insult. And she was just going to say, hey, sorry, I can't take this, without any back and forth, without opening the conversation, because she really felt so insulted. So I coached her on, hey, let's bring the base up a little bit. You know, we'll make good arguments so they'll come up. And let's increase the percentage of the bonus that they can offer you. So then with your own efforts, as you make these sales, and it was in a like an architectural industry, which is what she really was good at. She just needed the money to kind of match the job. Needless to say, after a few conversations with the employer, she was able to accept the job because we negotiated better on those numbers. And we also put into the contract very clear guidelines and quotas that if she hit these quotas, these would be the bonuses. And that was a protection for her that she will really get, let's say, the 60% bonus as long as she meets these numbers and quotas. So for someone who had not worked for probably about 2 years, really needing the job, this was really an incredible outcome because we were able to salvage the situation. And in terms of the walk away point, we did have a strategy for that, and it was like the absolute last resort. And at the end, we were going to say, listen, this is the amount that I have ever made. Like, this is the least I have ever made. You cannot possibly pay me less than that, and therefore I have to turn the job down. But because of the more emotionally evolved and emotionally intelligent conversations that we have brought in, she actually was able to accept the role at a better pay. So if you have to walk away, there is nothing wrong with that. But I would just encourage you to try everything that you possibly can before it has to go to that. And your walk away point B, excuse me, would simply be if, let's say, the pay cannot absolutely meet your living expenses. At that point, you really have to walk. Or if you feel extremely underpaid because you know your worth, and accepting any less is kind of letting yourself down, is really abandoning yourself because you're not communicating, you're accepting a lower value than what you're worth. Title not matching the job description and responsibilities. This is so common. And we see an ad for a job and, you know, we apply and then we find out the salary. It's very common that the title is, let's say, manager, but the job description is director. And then the salary matches the title, not the job description. Again, I would encourage everyone, and I coach my clients on this, use this mismatch to your advantage and bring this to light to the company, because what you're doing is actually opening their eyes, you're educating them, and they're getting to learn about you. And they're getting to notice that you actually understand what these roles are, what the job responsibility is, and you have done it before, because you can now communicate how this is a mismatch and what is really, really required for the job. So this may actually enlighten them and open them up to paying you more. And I also want to stress that when companies put a job out there and attach an amount to it, they had not done the research that you're doing to benchmark those roles. They're guessing that maybe this is what people get paid, or this is what we can afford. So use it as a guideline, but everything is negotiable, right? So as I've already mentioned, the ambiguities or the mismatches, use them to drive the negotiation. And you always want to come from a place of empathy, right? This is not pointing a finger that they've done something wrong. It's kind of saying like, hey, let me show you something here. Let me help you out. This is really how it works. So, you know, be a friend to them. They'll love you for it. Also, psychologically, if people are in a better mood, their brain is working at a better capacity by 30%. So if you get them to like you, they're in a good mood. So now they're being smarter. They also like you. So they may want to pay you more, or they're going to go to the CEO, the CFO to get you more money. So it's really important that everything in the negotiation is very friendly. And you can also get access to the value of the benefits that the company offers, because that has a price tag attached to it as well. So find out what the available benefits are, and you can kind of price them yourself, or you can inquire about them. You want to be very clear on what's most important to you. And a woman once asked me, can I make a list of things and then negotiate all of them? I would say focus on 3 to 5 that are really important, because you don't want to appear too greedy. And if the employer has met you on the top priority pieces, you may not want to focus on the other ones, right? If, let's say, they gave you a big sign-on bonus, the salary is what you want, you're getting the vacation you want, there is a little bit of equity, and overall it's already a generous package, you may not want to be a stickler over extra 1% or 2% into your 401k, because they're giving you that money in the higher aspects of the offer. Any questions so far? Okay.
So far.
Okay, good. So once you have identified what's important to you in the offer to negotiate, you want to learn to communicate your value and how your skills match the employer's needs. So this will take a look at everything that you have done in the past. You want to really take a look at the job description and create a match. Communicate that match in a very clear, succinct way. The employer just wants to hear easily how you're going to be a good fit for the company, right? And then it's easier to get you the money that you want. And as I already talked about, making them your friend, putting them in a good mood, you want to remain very positive, friendly, and flexible. And women could not be more tired of hearing to smile more. However, you're not smiling to make that guy feel good. You're smiling because people who smile appear confident. So you're smiling because you're really feeling confident in that situation, which is really tough because it's a negotiation, but you're so trusting in yourself that you're in a really good mood. That's going to put them in a good mood. Now they're going to be smarter and they're going to like you. So treat the negotiation as a conversation with a friend, not a confrontation. You're not buying a car. That's totally different. And the type of negotiation, let's say when you're buying a car, or even if business owners are fighting, selling a business, that type of negotiation is very confrontational because somebody wants a bigger piece of the pie. In a negotiation over salary, these are people you're going to work together with for a long time, potentially. So you don't want to start off on the wrong foot. And from the beginning, you want to kind of show them how you are here to work together. You are working on a collaborative result. You're trying to make this deal happen so you can start helping the company to grow. So keep that in mind, that it's not about who gets a bigger piece of the pie. It's about how together we make a pie this big, this big. So if you can communicate that, they're never going to look at any other potential candidate ever again. You never want to share anything personal or overshare for why you need the money. So that woman in New York that I told you about, she wanted to tell them that she's a single mom and she wants more money. And I had to talk her out of it because that's none of their business, number one. She was also negotiating with a man who had a stay-at-home wife taking care of the kids. So this would not resonate with him at all. And it would only make her look desperate. So stay away from personal things. Now, is there a way to communicate that you have student debt? Possibly, but the way you would want to do it is, what type of assistance does the company offer with student debt? You're not saying, hey, I have student debt, can you help with it? You're simply inquiring about whether there is a program or a benefit. So there is a little bit of a share of what's important to you, but not necessarily, hey, I graduated with $80,000 debt, which sounds very desperate. You want to anticipate their reservations and questions. There will be a lot. And especially if you're negotiating with a man. The one thing I want to prepare you for is that men will say things and ask you things that may not even relate. They'll say that just to rattle you. Or they'll say, they'll say that because they may feel threatened by your confidence, and they will feel like, oh gosh, I'm feeling these emotions that I don't like. I have to say something to put myself back in my power. So just be prepared for that. Don't take any of that personally. Respond with a smile because you're that confident. You also want to learn everything you can about the company, their structure, salary structure, benefits, and also culture. If they have good culture and employees are important to them, that increases your negotiation power. But you want to get a sense for how much they pay their people, how they reward their people, do they do increases, bonuses, and what other benefits there are. A lot of companies offer specific wellness benefits these days. So have an understanding of it. And if it's important to you, assign a value to it too. If it's not, then focus on the other pieces that are important to you. In an interview and negotiation, you will certainly be asked about your desired salary. Ideally, you defer that up until the end, but you cannot control it at what stage of that process they ask you. And if you are going through a recruiter, if you're being hired through a recruiting company, that recruiter actually will not even put you forward unless they know your desired salary. So in those cases, with a recruiter, you want to state a range because you've already done the research and you know what it's worth. Don't forget to go a little higher. And you want to follow up with a question, what is the company thinking? What is the company offering? What can the company do? You never want to ask, is this aligned with what the company's offering? That's an ended question. And that is answerable by either yes or no. Those questions are somewhat dangerous if you are wanting to elaborate on the discussion. So for those reasons, what you want to use are open-ended questions, calibrated questions, if you will. And those start with words what, where, how, who, when, why, although why is very invasive. So instead of why, what I like to use is for what purpose. So you don't come off too invasive. So with these questions, you can really elaborate and get more information rather than yes or no.
Katerina,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
of course.
I believe actually several years ago you helped me with this, but on one of the occasions when a headhunter reached out to me, it was for a nonprofit, and they asked me, before we even go further, I need to know if this salary range is going to be acceptable to you. And I don't remember all the details of how this went down, but it actually wasn't. But somehow we ended up going forward in the process, and come to find out, they said, well, for the right person, there's some board members that would be willing to kick in some more money into the organization for the right person. So had I walked, I don't remember how you coached me or how I got through that period, but there is the possibility
but they ask you if a range is okay with you, and there actually is more on the table than, you know what I'm saying? So, I
Yeah.
mean, have you come across that before, and how do you advise to handle that?
Yeah, so it's really tough. And in that instance, your empathy has to just fully turn on. What you have to shut down is, oh, I want this number. It has to be this number. Because if we're thinking that way, it shuts the conversation down. If we're coming from empathy, we're now literally having a conversation about, okay, how do we make it possible? Who else can help? And you can have 3 conversations, get nowhere, and shut it down at the end. But again, at least you tried. So if someone says, hey, we're willing to offer this, are you willing to even work for this amount of money? What I would say at that stage would be, so let's talk about the responsibilities. What type of work do you expect for this amount of money? Because you can, let's say your role normally pays 200, they're offering you 120. Look, if I want to work there, maybe, but like, let's scale back the responsibilities. I'm not going to have teams reporting to me for $120,000. That's a great responsibility. So it's not a no, it's just a not this way.
So is it legit to say something along the lines of, I could be, it just depends, let's progress in the discussions and see where it goes?
Absolutely. So in my examples, I share one that alludes to, let's make sure it's a right fit. And then we talk about the numbers, because that's a really good way to deflect as well. It communicates that you're not in it for the money. You want to learn more about the company, the role, and what you would be doing, how you can help the company, which when they'll spill into the dollars. So the other thing is, what you're doing is making them fall in love with you. And by saying the right things at the right time, look, they're going to trip over themselves to get you the money. And in your case, they went to board members, right, and said, listen, we have this powerhouse that we cannot lose. So who's willing to kick in for that, right? So don't be afraid to really just shine and communicate and be bold. And if at the end they cannot afford you, just imagine what a learning experience that was for you. You're going to walk into the next interview and get exactly what you want because you had just practiced that.
100%.
Yeah, so
you.
really, my pleasure. So re-emphasize your value and how you are just basically the best for the company. They cannot afford to hire anyone else. And there is a full-on value statement that you can have queued up, which we'll also talk about. So to prepare yourself to communicate your value and your worth so they cannot say no to you is to spend some time and reflect on your past work experiences. And this is, again, where the guys do way better job than we do, because they will brag about what they've done, even though if it was minor. They'll also, like I said, they'll brag about something they've done, even though it was their, someone on their team who did it for them. So dig deep into every single thing you have ever done. Take a look at the job description and see how that matches. And then you want to create a value statement that lists your skills and abilities. And these are not just hard skills, especially soft skills. And Lacey is a coach. I'm sure she appreciates soft skills. They will actually go a really long way. Successes and experiences, how you have led teams, problems that you have solved, problems that you have prevented, perhaps, and any achievements. And this could be if you are kind of younger in your career, this could even be from college, from your education years, contributions that you have made to teams, organizations, even nonprofits. If you have experience in that, let's say we've raised this amount of money, or we fed this many people, we made this amount of care packages. Because, and I am a philanthropist. Back in the day, I used to run this event where it was once a year, and we made care packages for US troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And from the nonprofit, we had clear instructions on what goes into those care packages. And I had to go to corporations and ask them for these goods to be donated. So if you have some of this experience where you have dealt with big corporations and created this amazing event, I mean, we've put together 5,000 packages each year that got sent to the Middle East to our troops. That just communicates great commitment and goal. So don't be afraid to include some of your even volunteer experience, and also how you have advanced in previous careers. If you've come from, let's say, entry-level position to a senior manager in a short period of time, you want to say that, because that shows your drive, commitment, and your aptitude. And you want to even list the steps in which you have moved up. After how many times, you know, upon what achievement did you get this promotion, and so forth. And as you articulate this, you want to be super confident. So again, light, smiling. You want to be very clear. And what's really important are stories. So do you notice how I weave in stories into this presentation? You want to do that as well, because if we just list off our achievements, they're not going to remember it. It will go over their head. If you build a story, it's more memorable, and it's going to resonate with them, because there is a personal aspect to it that's going to also pull on their heartstrings. They're going to remember something from their past where they've experienced this. It makes it that much more stickier. So list and communicate your past achievements through stories. And it could be, you know, find something on the job description that's, you know, is important to them, and think of a way that you have solved that in the past, for example, and practice that story and tell that story. And that could be in an interview or even at the negotiation table. So I already talked about avoiding answering salary questions during the interview. I will share some deflecting examples. The reason you want to wait till you have the offer in hand is because that's when it's in writing. And, you know, verbal could be ambiguous. Things get misread, misrepresented. You know, somebody says, yeah, we are able to offer you this. There is a chance you heard only the end part, not the first part. And they may have said, if you do this, we will offer you this. So to really eliminate any guessing, the offer has to be in writing and in a formal format. So either mail to you or email to you in a PDF. It has the company logo, and it lays out what you would be doing, to whom you're reporting. And at the bottom, it has the name of the hiring manager. And in between, it of course lays out what is being offered to you, all the pay, the benefits, and so forth. If you have already shared during an interview, there is a way to backpedal, and you absolutely have to. If you have shared and it's too low, you either have to walk away altogether or backpedal. There is no way you can accept that low offer just because you misspoke. So it's okay to say, now that I've learned more about this position, my salary requirements have changed. Have an argument for why they have changed. And chances are, in most cases, you learn that there is more responsibilities. And then you would share your new target salary range. And again, you have substantiation for that because you've done the research. Other ways to deflect is I'd like to learn more about the role and how I can help your company before we discuss the right level of compensation. They may still want to know that at least you're in the vicinity. So have the target queued up with support, supported by the right research again. You can also say, before we discuss the salary, I'd like to determine whether I'm a good fit for the role, company, culture first. They'll like that because they'll see that you're not in it just for the money. You want it to be a good fit for both parties. And don't be afraid to ask what they anticipate to pay. And it could be either, what do you usually pay someone in this position? Or what is the company's budget for this role? Again, you want to use an open-ended question. So what, how, and so forth. So a few more salary reflecting examples. I'd rather talk about the offer after, or I'd rather talk about that after you've made me a job offer. If you have done a slightly different job previously and maybe changing industries even, you can say, this position is not exactly the same as my last one. Let's discuss what my responsibilities will be here and then determine a fair compensation for this job. You cannot go wrong with this. Like, this just screams reasonability. So feel free to use that. I'd appreciate if you could make me an offer based on your budget for this position and we could go from there. I absolutely love this because it puts the ball in their court while they're trying to hit the ball in your court. But essentially, it's on them to court you, appease you, appeal to you. It's kind of like when you're going on a date, the guy or woman, whom are you going on a date with, they're trying to really court you, right? So they're going to do their best. Let that company do that for you as well. I'm not comfortable with revealing that information, but I am interested in discussing some other ways I can help the company. So whatever is true to you, use some of these examples. You want to feel comfortable saying them. And it's really important to also practice. And the reason you want to practice for a negotiation is because you don't want to appear as if you're saying that for the first time ever. So it's helpful to role play with someone you trust. You want to write out questions and answers. You want to write down yours and also theirs. And you want to write out even the reservations that they will come back to you. And it's helpful to simulate a negotiation by putting yourself and your partner in realistic context. And then you want to also switch, right? One of you is the company and vice versa. Repeat this process until you feel comfortable. And I mean, like, literally in your body. You feel the confidence, you feel that relaxation, and the words are just rolling over your tongue like you've done this 1,000 times. And this could also be done in front of a mirror, or you can record yourself and just replay it, find out what you don't like, redo it until you really get it fully comfortable. Practice your value statements as well, the deflecting questions and all of that. One thing that women do is when we talk, we inflect up. And inflecting up signifies that we're asking a question. Unfortunately, in California, that's kind of become a part of the dialect, seems like. And we have to be really aware of this. Because if someone asks, what is your desired target salary for this, for this role? 120,000? I'm asking a question. Meanwhile, I'm trying to state my target salary, right? What you want to say is, upon my research, this role pays $120,000. I inflected down, which communicates that this is a statement, not a question, and I cannot be argued with. Guys do this really well. because there is like a less emotion, less excitement in the way they talk. But if we change just this one aspect, we would be taking a lot more seriously. So you can do this even in any everyday life, not just in a negotiation. And in your practice, don't just think about what you want to say, seriously say it out loud. It will be noticed in your voice, whether you're confident or not. And if you have one shot at this, you want to go as prepared as you possibly can. I always say that I can coach people on this negotiation and I can teach them all of the information. You know, you can read books on this, but if you don't practice once, it's not going to be effective. The practice is really, really crucial. And like I said, recording is really effective. I have actually done that several times. So here are a few more examples on negotiation. So you can say something like, thank you for meeting with me to discuss the offer. I am looking forward to joining the team. Do you have any flexibility in the salary? According to my research, the typical salary range for somebody with my qualification in this role is $40,000 to $45,000. So please excuse the salaries. They're clearly not California, but the examples are still valid. So this simply communicates that you've done your research, and that is really, really important. It doesn't even matter what you found in the research. The fact that they're hearing you've done some research, it's already telling them, oh gosh, we got to be serious with this one. She knows what she's talking about. And a lot of the stuff in negotiation is simply psychological. It's less of what you say, more of what they hear, you make them believe. So another example is, I'm very excited about this opportunity. However, I would like to talk about compensation, as I believe I would be a great asset to the team, especially since this is where you insert your value statement or, you know, your special skills. Based on my research, we can consider a salary in the range of $40,000 to $45,000. So again, adjust that range because they're going to hear the lower number. And here's an example. Thank you for the job offer. I have reviewed the salary package, which I am happy with. Had some questions about the benefits package, especially telecommuting options. So this is where you would insert the pieces that are truly important. But those are some ideas on what you can try. So how do you benchmark the role? What do you use for your research? So payscale.com is one resource, salary.com. People have been using LinkedIn, and it's also become more common that people reach out to strangers on LinkedIn to truly ask, hey, how is your company? How do they pay? What's the culture like? So don't be afraid to get a little more assertive with that. Glassdoor is also another resource. You can use the Department of Labor and Bureau of Labor Statistics. Just be careful with the numbers because they're rather national. And living in California, our numbers are quite higher. So you can use it as a baseline, but don't use that necessarily to communicate the salary range. AAUW is a nonprofit that supports specifically women in the workplace, so you may find some information there as well. There is a new website, and it's very, very new. It's rather for tech industry now. I'm sure it's going to develop into more industries. It's called Levels, Levels, levels.fyi. So you can also use that website. And if you wanted to read up on some stuff yourself, Never Split the Difference by Christopher Voss is a tremendous book. And his negotiation can be used for anything. Even, you know, if you're arguing about who's going to take the trash out at home, he has some pointers for that as well. And he has been an inspiration for me to build this seminar. So a lot of the stuff that I shared with you today is from him. Ask for it, and women don't ask. is by Linda Babcock and Sarah Lashever. So these are specifically for women. Kay Dixon, she's actually one of my competitors. She also coaches women on salary. She wrote a book, Pay Up, and then Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. So see what fits your needs. Because the world of negotiation is quickly evolving and changing, I pay attention to the year that the book was published, because it's changed in the last 3 years alone. So just keep an eye on that. Another resource is Ellevest. So Sally Krawcheck is a female executive from Wall Street and banking industry. She spent a lot of time at Citibank, and she has started, it's a robo-advisor investment platform for women called Ellevest. And on her website, she does put out content around gender wage gap and kind of the things that we as women have to keep an eye on if we want to achieve our financial independence. So that's another resource that you can go to get more educated. And shoot, I'm not seeing this much.
Nice.
Yeah, so certainly educate yourself on how you can improve your negotiation skills. We talked about why it's important. So now you absolutely cannot afford to not negotiate. Just be really prepared for when you do, because it literally pays. So here is my information. Thank you. Thank you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know if you have any questions. And if there are questions in the room, we still have a few minutes.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Yes, we have one.
Do you have any experience on how to negotiate and work for government? Because I did try it once, and I'm like, oh, we don't do that. And I'm like, "Is that
Did you hear that?
Yeah, so if you work in a government role.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So look, it's the same thing. You want to make a list of the job duties that you are performing and see whether the title matches. And in a government setting, they would even be more afraid to have you do a job of, let's say, a director and pay you only as a manager. So be very clear and aware of the type of work you're performing. Are you doing a job of 2 people? Are you doing a job of a director when you're just a manager? And create an argument and go to your superior with that. I have built a second seminar, kind of a spin-off of this, on how to negotiate your salary within your current company. Perhaps you don't want to leave your job because you love the job, it's convenient, you're doing great work, you feel fulfilled. But over time, especially as women, we, let's say, enter as a manager and we have a team of people and the company is going through layoffs and the team has reduced. And I now had to pick up the job of the other person who got laid off. So my responsibilities have increased, and in my 40-hour work week, I somehow have to perform the job of 2 people. And women, because we don't necessarily talk about the work that we're doing as much as men do, either at the water cooler or the lunch or the golf course, we appear as we talk the least, but do the most work. And it's really to our hindrance. And you know what you get at a workplace for doing a good job and doing good work? You get more work, but you don't necessarily get more money. So if this has started happening, call it out. And not in an aggressive way, just, hey, my work week here is 40 hours. How would you like me to split my time between these 2 positions? Because it's not on their radar that you're doing a job of 2 people or that you have gained responsibilities, right? Your boss is just happy that the job's getting done, because your boss is reporting to their boss. So be fully aware, communicate it in a clear, concise way. And again, with empathy, and be inquisitive. Don't come in there, listen, I'm doing 2 jobs, and getting paid as 1 employee. Be kind of clueless. I'm sorry, this is a 80-hour workload a week. How would you like me to designate my hours to this? Pretend that you're asking them for help, and it's going to be on their radar. Oh gosh, we've overwhelmed her. Yeah, there is no way she can get this done. And if she can, because heck yes, we can, then let's increase the salary.
Hey, Katerina, I could add on something to that. In California, all salary ranges for government jobs are published. I forget the site, but it's easy to find. And it is typically a range. So if you have that information, you can determine where you are in that range. And I have seen, I work close with local governments like cities, and we work closely with the city of Brea and also with Cal State Fullerton, whose education entity. And there are differences in salary within a range between male and female. The woman who runs this program over at Cal State Fullerton found out 15 years into her career that was true, that she was making less than her counterparts. And, she renegotiated when she found that out based on the public information that's available. But as Katerina points out, she'd missed out on 15 years prior to that. So I do think there's some wiggle room there, but you'll have to do the research.
And best way to find out how much you are worth or your job is to apply with other companies. That's how you also get a sense for what someone is willing to pay for you. And I had a client on the financial planning side, not on the negotiation side, and she kept asking me, how much do you think my house is worth? And I'm not a real estate professional. There's no way I could guess that. And I said, list it on the market and see what people are willing to offer you. That's really how you find out what it's worth. And you can apply that to your own self. And you may find out that, if your company is not budging, not paying you more, you've now had applications out there and you're interviewing with 3 companies. You may find out that by switching, you can actually improve your financial position, and you don't have to get into that pull and push with your current employer that's not willing to budge.
The other thing with governments too, Katerina, right now is that they're hurting for workforce.
Yeah.
For, as well. And so there might be more wiggle room now than there might be at another point in time. We have another question.
One more question, is there a website where you can find out what companies are best paid, I guess offer best pay, best benefits? I know you can Google it, but with so many resources you just give out, just wondering if there's a website that you know of that would give you that information.
I do a Google search in those instances and utilize professionals on LinkedIn who work in those companies. So it takes a little bit of a assertion, and get a little more aggressive, I would say.
Also, the Orange County Business Journal does a best companies to work for list every year. I think it's getting ready to come out, and then they will say why the company's the best to work for. Sometimes it's, they promote women as much as men. Sometimes it's high salaries or whatever. So Orange County Business Journal or OCBJ, I don't know if it's .org or .com, but easy to find. And then once you see that, read through the list and see which ones are one of the best places to work because they pay well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Got another question. Go ahead.
How would you begin or initiate a conversation to reevaluate without seeming aggressive? I don't want to just knock on the door and be like, hey, I'd like to talk about, renegotiating salary. How do you initiate that conversation in an empathetic and kind way, but also with an ability to advocate for what you need?
So if I understood correctly, how do you go up to your superior to have this conversation about renegotiating your salary?
Yeah.
So depending on the relationship you have with them, either send an email, hey, I'd like to set up a time to speak with you. Or, if you see them in the hallways or whatever, hey, could we please set some time aside to have a conversation? And then you come in with the arguments and the research that you have made, right? So in most cases, if you've worked and I'm sorry, before I go there, also have in mind, when was your last review? If your last review was, let's say, 3 months ago, having to revisit it so soon when you had not done that in the past might be a little odd. So just be mindful of that. If you had not had a review in 2 years, well, this is very easy to set up a meeting to talk about that. And you want to talk about, where you started, how far you've come along, the type of work that you are doing, maybe communicate, I didn't have people reporting to me 2 years ago, and now I have a full team that I'm managing. And say, I am more of a manager now, or I am an assistant director at this point. So how can we match the responsibilities to my pay? And I'll share an example. I was on the Big Island of Hawaii, and I met this young woman at a dive shop. I'm a diver myself, and she was 25, and she said, I started at this dive shop, working the register, and now I am entirely running the whole operation. And there's been no increase in her pay. So I coached her. It was really quick because we were at a bar having a beer. And she then sent me a message and said, hey, I got an hourly raise. I think it was $2 per hour and a $500 bonus. Because they really saw the value that she's bringing in, but they didn't catch on to the fact, because there were a bunch of guys, that she had been progressing all this time. So if you don't speak up for yourself, no one else will. And one thing I want to share, we advocate better on everyone else's behalf but our own. So if you're in a negotiation, position yourself as if you're advocating on behalf of your daughter, your mom, best friend, or even your current employer. I have a client who's in a pharmaceutical industry, and she was so scared to negotiate her salary, but for living, she negotiates contracts with insurance companies. And I said, you're already doing that. Just take yourself out of the equation, pretend you're doing it on someone else's behalf. The emotions are removed, and you're going to achieve a way better outcome.
Excellent. Okay, let's everybody thank Katerina. Thank you so much, Katerina. We really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. It was so much fun. Thank you for having me, ladies, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.